Hey everybody, welcome back to art class. So this is week 2 of our 2-week long superhero project where you are becoming a superhero and you're drawing a picture all about it. So last week we worked on ideas. We worked on coming up with the logo, what the superhero would have on their uniform. We were supposed to think about what kind of powers we wanted, how we would use those, what sort of color scheme we would use on our uniform and our logo. So, like we said, last week was all about kind of coming up with ideas. This week is about using those ideas. So today you're actually going to draw your superhero. Now, one of the things that's really important when you're drawing people, and that's kind of what we're going to focus on today, is something called proportion. We've talked about proportion a little bit before. Proportion is how big something is compared to something else. This is really important when you're trying to draw something that is realistic, or even something that's kind of based on something realistic. Because, I mean, we know superheroes, sadly, aren't real, so that's not what I mean when I'm saying realistic. I'm saying if you're drawing a person and you want them standing next to a car, you wouldn't make the car the size of a skyscraper. The proportion would need to be correct. So when we're drawing people, there are some kind of easy, once you learn them, tricks, I guess maybe I would say, some easy tricks to remember to help you with that proportion. Now, not gonna lie, drawing people is hard. These do not need to end up looking like real people. That's not what our goal is, but our goal is to make some cool looking superheroes. And that is something everybody should be able to figure out. So, in the art class, you have probably seen this guy and a whole bunch of different versions of this guy. So this has a name. This is called a drawing mannequin, an artist's mannequin. Some people will call it a drawing dummy, which is not nice because he's got feelings just like everybody else. This is a really good tool that artists use to help figure out proportions of humans. These are neat because they move. You can make them standing in different positions. You can make them running and jumping and doing all kinds of things. So this is really helpful. If you look, though, you'll see that it's made of different round shapes, different cylinders, different spheres. And those are all kind of the same size on a lot of these different ones that you will see because of what we're going to talk about proportions. So, let's look at this thing real quick. A long time ago, like thousands of years ago, like when people started figuring out how to draw humans, they also started coming up with some rules. Now, when we say thousands of years ago, that's probably not when these rules were came up with. There's a poor grammar thing going on there, and we'll figure that one out later. So thousands of years ago, they wouldn't have had these rules. So when we look at things, especially like thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, from like cave paintings, the proportions on the people don't look normal. Moving forward to, 1,000 years ago, the proportions are closer, like when we see ancient Greek and Roman things, when we see ancient things from parts of Asia, the proportions are closer, but it's not really until like the Renaissance period in art, where when we start seeing these rules and people proportions in artwork gets pretty much like it is in real life. So one of the rules has to do with using the size of your head to draw the rest of your body. Anything that you're trying to make look realistic, if you get the size right on one part of it and then use that part to help measure all the other things, it'll look great. If you're drawing a house and you start with just one window, and then you look at the house in comparison to that window, you'll do a good job. So when we talk about a person's head and the proportions, how that helps, kind of the average person, if you were to draw them, if you were to measure their head from the top of their head to their chin, they're about 7.5, 8 heads tall. Kind of like this guy. So that's what I mean by proportions. It doesn't matter how big you make the head of a person, as long as you then use that distance on your paper to make the rest of the person. So anywhere from about 7 to 8 heads tall is generally what we say people are if we're trying to make kind of a realistic looking person. Whatever that measurement of the head height is, if you turn that sideways and you put two of them right next to each other, so my head is now here and here, humans are about 2 head heights wide at the shoulders. So it's kind of funny to think about, and it's been very funny for me to say for the last couple of minutes, but that idea of using the head to measure out the rest of the body is something artists have been doing for a really long time because it works. Now, proportions aren't always going to be the same, right? We know a baby's proportions aren't going to be the same as an adult's. So here's another one that kind of shows you how that changes over time. Now, even though in this picture the heads are all real similar in size, we know that my big old noggin is not the same size as the head of a baby. So it still is important to remember that proportion thing. If we're looking at like the toddler here, that's not 3 or 4 or whatever adult size heads, that's toddler sized heads. So that proportion does kind of change over time. All right. Now you know the trick to drawing people. Start with the head. That's kind of it for proportions to think about. I'm going to put those pictures on the site down below here. You can use them if you want. You don't have to. Now, when we think about exactly what we're doing, when we think about comic books, when we think about cartoons, when we think about anime stuff, those proportions aren't always realistic, right? They're sometimes completely different from what we would see in real life. But it's good to know kind of that basic. Once you have an idea of how that proportion works, then you can change that however you want based on the style that you're going for. Again, I do not expect these to turn out looking like a photograph of you dressed as a superhero, but I did want you to kind of think about that maybe while you were creating your own. It's like I said, it's just kind of a good trick to have in the back of your head as you move forward in your skill learning and practicing as an artist. All right. So here's what the plan is for this week. You're going to draw yourself as the superhero that you have created. You can do that one of 2 different ways. You can do it like I did with my art man, art guy, art dude, where he's just standing there being super. So you could just draw the superhero if you wanted, or if you wanted to draw a whole picture that shows you as your superhero doing something super, fighting crime, something like that. That's fine. A background, other people, other characters, all that is good. You could even take that idea one step further and do a couple different smaller panels like we would see in a comic book. So you could do 3 or 4 different ones that would tell a story of what was going on. If you do choose to do the one where it's going to show us using your superhero powers, remember, this is school, nothing violent, nothing gross. Now, Obviously, superheroes are going to fight bad guys, so I get it. But just remember, nothing like violent. I trust you to know the difference between a superhero punching a bad guy and it's saying bop real big in the background and something that would be actual violent and not okay. I think that's it, my friends. I think that's all we've got for this week. I cannot wait to see these. I think they are going to be fantastic. If you have any questions at all, you can email me. You can use the Flipgrid thing for questions as well. And then whenever you're done, send them in. Can't wait to see them. Hope everybody is doing well. See you later.